Yo, everybody. Welcome to Off Panel, a weekly interview podcast about all things comics brought to you by Sketch.com. I'm your host, David Harper, and this week's guests are the co-storytellers behind the Image Comics series, The Lucky Devils, which arrived on January 8th. It's Soule and Ryan Brown. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having us. It's great to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So we're recording this the day before The Lucky Devils, your aforementioned new Image Comics series, hits comic shops. How are you guys feeling? Are you excited? Ryan, where are you at?
Yeah, I'm excited. I was realizing that I started drawing pages from issue 1 last year exactly. So it was like a year ago that I was drawing issue 1. So it's been a while. And with Charles and I, we worked back and forth, and we've sat on this first issue so many times. We did so many revisions. We pulled whole chunks out of it and moved them to other issues. So it's just kind of like, you know, you do all this prep work and you never know how it's going to land. And you still don't really know once a book comes out, because it's not like I'm sitting there looking over your shoulder seeing if you react to things. But it's just nice to like know that like people know what we're doing. You know, they'll see what we're getting at, and we'll just kind of get a sense of it if it's landing or not.
Yeah. What about you, Charles?
For me, I think that that you can consider other equivalent sort of emotional landscapes to a situation like this, right? Like your movie's coming out tomorrow, your novel's coming out tomorrow. And the difference between any of those and this is that Ryan and I are still making the thing as we go.
Yeah.
We don't have this like, oh my God, we did it, we're finished, let's see what the world thinks of this work that we made. It's like we have the first 10 minutes of this movie done, and we still have to make the following 80 minutes of it, which is like almost literally like the amount that we're talking about, because it's a 9-issue series. And so it feels great. I feel extremely confident in the book. And now that we're further along and I know what happens and I know where it's going to go, it's great. But it does, like, there's no sense of release. There's almost no sense of relief, although some reviews have been coming in that have been really strong, which is really, really nice. But like, we're working on, we have to send issue 2 to press. Issue 2's been done, well, basically done for a little bit, but you have to send it to press right around the time the preceding issue comes out. And we're still making little like tweaky changes that are kind of fundamental to the way that the storytelling rules of this book operate, which I think is something that was alluded to in Ryan's answer, because we are very much like, we fiddle a lot, and the things that we do tend to have underpinnings to them in terms of the story architecture and the rules architecture of the worlds that we're building. And we're kind of figuring some of those things out still. And new situations are popping up within the storytelling that require rules that we didn't think of before we started making the book. So it feels like we're just still doing it. And like now people are going to get a look at it tomorrow, and hopefully they'll say nice things that will make us happy, and retailers will want to keep buying it at increasingly large numbers throughout the 9 issues. But I mean, I'm excited. I'm ready for it to be out. I'm ready for people to see it. But I will be, the feeling I think you're thinking of is going to be like the night before the trade comes out, or the night before the 9th issue comes out.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting because we're always thinking, I think readers or outsiders are looking at things like this as like, oh, this is the big moment. But you're exactly right. I mean, you sent me the second issue, Charles, and you're like, this is not complete. And I got to some pages that weren't colored yet. And like in my head, like one of the questions I originally had before you sent that over was like, basically, how far into it are you, like almost done? And as if like any comic creators go into a 9-issue series with the entire thing done ahead of time. Like that doesn't really happen. And I don't know, it is also kind of fascinating because I ran into a situation where I just had Patrick Brower on the podcast from Challengers Comics and Conversation, where you'll be doing a signing the weekend before this goes up. And we were kind of talking about the series and everything. And the fascinating thing is he saw an earlier version of the first issue and he was like, what did you think of this part? And I was like, that's in the second issue. What are you talking about? And like, that's one of the things that's interesting is like, it's not just like you're moving a line to the second thing. It's like the beginning of the entire original version of the first issue is now the open to the second issue. So it's a very fluid thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's constantly figuring out like how it feels, and you don't know how it feels until you've completed some of it, and so like the first issue of Curse Words and 8 Billion Genies were the same way. And both of those first issues had stuff cut out. Literally, there are pages that I drew for Curse Words 1 and for 8 Billion Genies 1 that I took out and redrew and changed, and we moved single panels to be splash pages so that it would like hit harder. And so and that's not stuff that you do on issue 5 or 6 or something, but on issue 1 where you're like, you've got the attention, you've got the reader, you've got to like make the most chiseled and perfected version of your idea for that one issue. And then hopefully you'll grab them with that, and then you can, without being too expository, but like really like let them know what they're in for. And so you have to think ahead um with that 1/9 of the series to what you're going to be doing the whole way down the line. So the amount of prep and thinking, like the first issue of any series takes months and months and months and months. At least it does for Charles and I, because we go back and forth so much, and it's not just like, oh, issue 1 that takes 1 month, issue 2 takes 1 month, issue 3 takes 1 month. No, it's like that first issue, like I'm working on it for a year, and then I went and did a different job. We sat on it. I did that book with Kyle Starks, and then came back to it and made more revisions, and like it's a really, that's the most labor intensive thing that you do in a comic, is that first issue. And like, just like that first issue cover to me is like, and it's happened with every series I've ever done, that first issue cover defines the entire series. That is the image for the entire series. And so like that, I did a cover, and then we had Frank Miller do his B cover, and he used my cover as like reference for the characters. And I was like, well, now they're too similar. So I just did another cover, and I was like, so and then I used a different placeholder earlier for a cover. So I was on the third iteration of the cover, and then we had to figure out if we did a preview edition with a black background, and we decided that last second to change it to the white background for the final thing. So like,
It's fluid.
yeah, it's fluid. It's really, really fluid. And like the amount of crafting that goes into that first issue sets up everything else, so that every issue doesn't have to take that much heavy lifting to get it out the door. That being said, I spent all of today doing revisions on issue 2, an issue that was done, but like we had new ideas about it and about the storytelling, and so I worked on that. So
I think that's part of what you get when you got. I mean, I don't know that every creator-owned comic or team does this, but Ryan and I feel very, very firmly that when we do a book, it should be the best possible work that we can do. And there's a lot of, oh, it's not done yet, until like there's a feeling I think we both have when it is done, and that's when it's done. And sometimes it's done, and then guess what? It's not done, which is always fun. But you could assign that in some ways to the sense that there's going to be a lot of eyes on Devils because of what happened like with Genies. But the truth is we've been like that since the beginning. Like, as Ryan pointed out, the first issue of Curse Words was like, I think like 14 pages of it were ditched. Like it was a very different thing. And then it was the thing, but it was a not as good version of the version of Curse Words #1 that eventually existed. And Genie's #1 had lots of tweaks and fiddling as we figured it out. I mean, Ryan, you dove back in and adjusted things on those issues for the hardcover.
yeah.
And I think I would assume that's what we're going to do for Devils. We talked about a change that we'll fix that for the permanent version. Something we want to change that we're probably going to not do for this, now, and for the singles, and we'll do it for the hardcover. But it's, I don't know, like this stuff, it matters to us, right? We're artists, and we want our art to be the best art we can make. Awesome.
Do you feel like with obviously Curse Words was the first thing the two of you did together, but I kind of feel like with 8 Billion Genies and with the Lucky Devils, you have almost like rules you have to explain about these worlds, where you have to help people understand the core concept, because everything will build off of that. Obviously that's true to some degree with Curse Words too, but there is like 8 Billion Genies, everyone gets a genie, they all get one wish, chaos reigns, but you have to understand that to really get the first issue. I think the same is true to some degree with the Lucky Devils. Do you think that needing to help readers really understand the rules of this help shape the changes you had for both the 8 Billion Genies and the Lucky Devils?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
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 Billion percent. I mean, let me speak to that very quickly, Ryan, and then jump in however you want. But like I spend there's a huge development phase before Ryan does anything other than maybe a character design where I'm just figuring out the rules of these worlds. I work in Moleskine notebooks and I just like fill them page after page after page with how does this work? How does this aspect work? And then I'll do some work and then I'll think, oh wow, well I figured that out, but that opens this set of questions. And so I'll have a really thorough understanding of all of the underpinnings of like the Genie's world or let's say 95% of it, because there are things I find along the way still. I leave myself some room. But basically I know how it all works. But then what I almost inevitably do is I dump too much of that into the first issue. Like there's a lot of exposition as far as like, well, this is exactly how this works, and this is exactly how you need to know it, because I'm worried. First of all, I've done all that work and I want to use it, but I'm also like worried that the readers aren't going to get it. But what I almost always do is that's what tends to come out is the stuff that's over explaining. Because if you think about the scene you're talking about that got moved, that initial scene is a huge info dump as far as the way the rules of the Devil world work. And it's a kick-ass scene. It's beautiful, but it really, where it is now is where it should be, because it's after you've been introduced to all the character stuff and the emotional stuff that matters. And then you're going to have questions. And then here at the start of issue 2, you get a lot of answers to those questions. But I didn't see it. I was just so like, oh my God, people aren't going to get it unless I just give it all to them. What's a fun way to do it? And then I came up with the idea that starts issue 2. But it's a lot of that, like figuring out how to deploy the architecture that's been built in a way that is like fun, as opposed to just here's a rule book.
Right. Yeah. I mentioned before we started recording that we're going to talk about 8 Billion Genies a little bit first. I think it's really an interesting project because, again, curse words, great book, but 8 Billion Genies was a gigantic hit in a lot of different ways. And I know that a lot of that came off of like the Amazon Prime heat, but it was a great book that people discovered because it had this big spotlight on it. What do you think you learned from its success? Like, do you think there were major learnings from what you did on that book and its successes that have kind of informed what you've done on the Lucky Devils?
I mean, I learned, I learned a lot. A lot about the world of comic collecting and a lot about how the industry works. But I really learned a lot about drawing and storytelling and how to be inventive and creative. I think that is the book where I became comfortable as an artist, and it wasn't until probably issue 4, which is like the superhero issue, where I really kind of figured some stuff out. That have put me at like an art comfort level that has really changed the way that I make comics. But then by the end of it, I didn't want to draw anymore. I was so burnt out. But but really, like I figured out so much from doing it, but also I think having it be successful and figuring out why people were liking it helped me lean into the strengths that I had, and like just gave me I think it being successful gave me a lot more confidence in my ability to come up with ideas and to tell a story. And so career wise, it changed both of our lives. It was financially great for us to have some breathing room, when you work in an art form, but that art form is also your means of how you make your living. It changes how you make art. And so the goal for any artist, I think, is to get to a point where you get to do what you want to do, and it is financially successful, where you're not making conceits because you know that it will make you more money, kind of thing. And so like that, but that was the real I've been working professionally since 2012 full time as a comic artist. But this was the first time where I was like, oh, people are actually reading this. It's not a cult book. Like, it's got some degree of broad appeal, and Maybe there is some truth to the fact that I'm pretty good at telling a story, and that Charles and I have a good back and forth play that people respond to. Because I always felt like, even on Curse Words, I was like, I think it's a really good book, and I think it's very unique. The voice that we create when we work together, I don't know if it's for everyone. And it was interesting to do Genies and have that become a book that was much more for everyone.
I mean, I echo a lot of that. I was fortunate in my career before Genies that I had done work that landed on a big stage. So that part of it wasn't quite as novel to me. But for me, the work I do with Ryan, and Curse Words is included in this, all the way back to Popcorn Thing, that little like 2-page Swamp Thing story we did way back in like 2013. The work I do with Ryan from the beginning has been different than the work I do with any other artist. And it feels very keyed into my own sensibilities, to my own sense of humor. It is like separated from commercial concerns in a way that I don't always find in other stuff that I do. Like if I'm writing a Daredevil story or a Star Wars story, like there's definitely an impetus to the idea that I need to write something that's going to sell. Like I can't just do the weirdest possible thing I can think of just because it will make me laugh or amuse me. And
Right.
there are rules I have to follow and stuff like that, Whereas with Ryan, I kind of can do the weirdest thing I can think of, but also like he'll go there with me, which is great. He'll do things that surprise me that really make me laugh, or just surprise me in various ways. Like it's not just the humor part. There's lots of things that are surprising or shocking or interesting about what Ryan draws. But it feels like if you were to say the stuff that is closest to how I actually am, I think the stuff with Ryan is probably pretty. I mean, Ryan, I don't know. I think you read a bunch of my stuff. I think this stuff is like how I am, kind of.
Yeah.
Like sort of dumb, but also kind of like intense, and like I try to think things through and whatever. So it was really wonderful to have a book like Genies where I was just being myself, like talking about the things that I cared about, doing it the way that I wanted to do it, working with one of my very best friends whose talent I respect immensely. And then have it be like a big fucking deal as far as sales wise and critics wise, and like the Hollywood deal and all the other stuff that happened. It was very gratifying because what you're getting is this reflection from the world saying, hey man, we like you. It's not just we like when you write a cool Daredevil story because we like Daredevil. It's like we like your unfiltered artistic you. So that was a real boost to the old confidence meter for sure. But I don't know, it's just awesome. Like it was it made me see a path to this other place, which is I think where we are now with something like Devils, where we're just telling the stories we want and people coming to the table because it's us. Which is really, really cool. A really cool place to be.
Yo, everybody, it's David Harper from Sketch and Off Panel, and I just want to take a quick second to thank you for watching this video and to say that if you enjoy interviews like this, make sure to subscribe to the Sketch YouTube because it makes a huge difference for the channel. Thanks for watching.
I had a couple questions from patrons, Charles, and both of them oriented on, we know Ryan is funny, but we're kind of surprised that Charles is funny. And I do think it's kind of funny. I mean, I'm that's not disparaging you in any means.
No, I totally get it.
I mean, and I'm sure you've heard it many times before where it's just like this. I think the beauty of your collaborations together is that there's two things. One, it brings out the side of you that we don't normally get to see, Charles. And then the other thing too is it shows it's like I think people describe these books as comedies as like the simplest possible explanation. Anybody who read the last issue of 8 Billion Genies knows that is not entirely what that book is. It is a very poignant series. And it's really beautiful because it gets to see like true collaboration and how you two bring out the best in each other. And I guess the question for you there is how do you feel like you two balance each other out? Or do you feel like you balance each other out? Or are you just pushing each other in like crazier and crazier directions? Like, what is it?
I mean, Charles is a structure guy, at his core. Like, and Charles doesn't mind being super serious with his storylines and with the character arcs. And I have never felt comfortable doing that on my own.
Are you trying to tell me that Blast Furnace is neither structured nor serious?
Well, I just like I can't fake serious.
I
like,
know.
Well, like I don't do it well. I don't do that kind of stuff well. I really like eventing and playing, and and that's what I like to do. But obviously, when you have something like Blast Furnace or God Hates Astronauts, you know, like, what is it about? I'm like, I don't know. What's it about? I don't know. I just watched a lot of movies, and then I took filter of movies I liked and made it into like silly stories with animals. And so it's a really interesting thing that Charles plays in such a serious space in so many of his works, but he can also do funny. And so, like, I don't know, are any of your other stuff funny? I'm trying to think about that.
Not really.
Not really. She-Hulk
No,
had
this is-
some was kind of
Yeah.
quirky.
Yeah, She-Hulk
you
had
know?
some.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I'll do like a goofy issue of something just like for fun, like put some jokes in. But like it's weird. It's entirely unsurprising that you would get a remark like that from the patrons. But like I don't know. I make jokes constantly. Like when Ryan, when you and I are talking, it's like,
Oh, yeah.
right, it's just like all we do is make jokes. And when I'm like talking to people in my real life, like it's all like it's a lot of I'm like a real big dry humor thing. Like I'll just say something deadpan and it's, like I like that kind of stuff. And absurdity and just like going to weird places and ideas. And so that's how I actually think of myself as I think of myself as a very funny person who like to laugh and make other people laugh. But I think part of it is like maybe the lawyer background. Lawyers aren't traditionally known for being laugh riots. And the fact that so much of my work is like, the whole galaxy's at stake and only the Jedi can save it. Who's gonna, like that kind of thing. And it's great to be able to do that. And it's great to have that gear. But honestly, the only place I'm really exercising the like hilarity gear is with the stuff I do with Ryan. And then on things like the Curse Words concept album, which was like, I think is hysterically funny. But that again, like that's a pure me kind of, that's how I feel like I actually am. The Curse Words concept album is what I'm like. If you knew me as a person, we'd be listening to that record all day long.
I mean, I think it's your work informs what people think you are like. And it's like, if somebody only read Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil, they'd probably think he's the darkest, most depressed man ever. But if they only read like, I don't know, Sex Criminals or something like that, actually, they might think
he's a real perv.
Yeah, exactly. Or they might think he's depressed if they read Public Domain too. So maybe we just don't know what Chip actually is.
I think in general, Chip is a depressed perv, and I'll go on record.
Okay. Well, now that we've figured out who Chip is, but I mean, it is interesting though, because like the work does inform our idea of who you all are. But go to a different direction. I want to go back to the learnings thing from 8 Billion Genies. I think one of the things, and I think I told you this when you came on the podcast, when we talked about 8 Billion Genies, I love the fact that it was an 8-issue miniseries that had this singular focus. And I think that like, there's a lot of miniseries out there, and then there's a lot of titles that are of like an undetermined length. It's just going to, I guess we'll call them an ongoing perhaps. With yours, it feels so deliberate that like you know what these 8 issues are going to be, you know where you're going, or you know that it's going to be this length, and it feels like it's paced specifically for that. Lucky Devils, it does have that 9 issues, 9 circles of hell, the 7 deadly sins, all this stuff in there. Was that a big takeaway, or is that just what you needed for the Lucky Devils in specific?
Go ahead, Ryan. I mean, I just did a big long thing.
Yeah, I mean, the structure thing with 8 Billion Genies was like it was something that we came to talking over the phone at one point. And I think slightly was reaction to doing curse words for 28 issues and wanting to do curse words as like an ongoing for as long as we could. But then like kind of realizing, when you do an ongoing series, people stop paying attention, and you do a lot of world building, but it's tough to get new people into the thing, and it's like it's tough to sell trade 5, but if we did 5, short story trades, we could sell all those individually, and they take a lot more effort for world building, but it's just kind of like I always wanted to be the person that did, like, I want to do the craziest, like, 15-year run on a book, like, wouldn't that be awesome? And then I kind of learned how much I enjoy the invention.
Yeah.
I enjoy the spitballing and rounding it into form a lot. And maybe more than like that long-term character arc. And so, but then of course with 8 Billion Genies, it ended up being by far, my most successful thing I'd ever worked on. And I was like, wow, I wish we were doing more than 8 issues. Oh no, this should have been an ongoing. But perhaps it was well received because of the format. I think the restrictions on it, because especially telling a story where every single person gets a wish. I mean, you can literally say there's 8 billion different stories to tell, because everybody would have a wish that would play out in some different ways. So it was like our most grandiose idea and world that we built, and then we focused on just like one like tunnel of 8 characters and how they go through the rest of the existence of humanity. So with the Lucky Devils, we wanted to come up with a structure again, and then Charles figuring out like, oh, there are 9 circles of hell, here's a 9-issue thing. And again, Charles is a big structure guy, so I'm like, just figure it out, please. So then I'll draw I'll make things up. I'll draw weird creatures and stuff. You figure this out. What does it all mean?
That's what you're here for.
From a creative standpoint, which is what Ryan talked about, I think having finite things is great, because it means he and I are like, we know we're going to do this story. We're going to like, this is what we're making. This is how long it's going to last. This is, this is what we need to budget for. Like, there are elements that are important from that perspective. But for me, what became really quickly apparent with Genies is that telling people that this story had an ending that we were building to, that had a structure you could understand from the first issue, was crucial. It was like part of the pitch that was really, really effective with people, because I think people these days, like, I don't know, it's nice to know what you're getting in some ways, and know that you're being like sort of cradled gently in the arms of strong, powerful creators who are going to take you on a ride, and you'll be like well cared for along the way. And it's a thing where like readers can budget their financial investment.
Yeah.
They can say, well, okay, I know that it's $4 an issue and there's 8 of them, so $32 over a year, like I can make that work, or whatever the situation is. Like, there's a lot of ways that saying this is what we're doing, jump on board, is effective. And in particular, one thing that really helped us with Genies was the first issue went to 5 printings, the second issue went to 4, like, and so on. I think the third, like, you could almost always, for the first big chunk of that book, jump on board and have the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever issues available for you to get. So there are many opportunities for readers to get on board the single issue train. And we are hopeful that will happen with Devils as well. The initial support from retailers on #1 was huge, was great. But I think one thing that can be really challenging with series, especially limited series, is when the first issue came out 3 months ago and you can't find it anymore.
Right.
And then you see issue 3 on the stands that you missed issue 1. It's like, oh shit. So my hope, or what I might even suggest to Image, or even we would like fund it and say, we'll do this, is do additional printings of the early issues, even if the runs are tiny, just to allow people to have those issues on the stands.
Mhm.
Because I think it's really important to give people the opportunity to jump in. Now, do we do that through all 8 issues up to issue 9? Probably not. That's crazy. But like, for the first early, 3 or 4 months of the series, I think that could be really, really important. So we'll see how it goes. But I do think there's something really powerful to this is a 9-issue series on purpose. It's a story we're telling this way on purpose. It's not failing because it's only going 9 issues. It's succeeding because it's going 9 issues.
Right.
And I'm very confident in what we've got. I think it's great.
I think the multiple printings thing too is it's useful because right now we don't have a lot of indicators that a book is doing well. And so when it goes to another print, like with the Power Fantasy from Kieran Gillen and Casper Wingard, like that book, I think I got first issues in like 5 printings and stuff like that. And so by the time the second issue is out, you can get the second print of the first issue.
Right.
That way you can catch up right in one chunk. And that's really nice. But I mean, at the same time, it's like ideally you just sell a lot of everything and boom, that's great. But I do want to note, I made a mistake. There was actually 9 issues of 8 Billion Genies. Wishworld, that was great.
That's true.
I really liked Wishworld. New York Comic Con only, was it?
Yeah. The story with Wishworld was we learned a lot about the businessification of indie comics during Genies, and we learned quite a bit about all the different ways you can service a lot of different audiences or readerships or fans. And we knew some of that before. Like we'd been doing one-off issues. Ryan will do like issues where he'll like take God Hates Astronauts #1 and retitle it as Grandma's Hog Affairs, and then
That's a good one.
Write that down, Ryan.
So it's like a whole new comic that he can then sell, and like it's fun and it's silly. But what we wanted to do was to take our big home run book, 8 Billion Genies, and do another story set in that world. And it's kind of like a test bed for the idea of doing an ongoing Wishworld series, which we almost did instead of Devils. And so I think at some point our intention is to do an ongoing Wishworld series, because it seems like it's like leaving a lot on the table to not do it. But I felt, and I think Ryan and I kind of went back and forth on this, but I felt that telling a new original story that defined us as the kind of guys who do stuff like this would hopefully be more valuable in the long run than just being the guys who are really good at making stories about genies and wishes.
Right.
So we'll see how it goes. But Wishworld's always waiting for us whenever we need it, basically.
Yeah. We have as I said before, we have 8 billion different stories to tell, right?
That's right. All right, I'm going to do the solicit for the Lucky Devils. It's your new series with colorist Kevin Knipstein. I always get that one wrong. Knipstein and letter Crank. Here's the solicit for #1. The Lucky Devils is a tale of 2 rebellious demons who decide to start a revolution in hell, and the 2 ordinary 20-something humans they're going to manipulate to do it. A cheeky satirical look at good and evil, the Lucky Devils explores Faustian bargains and temptation in a rip-roaring, hilarious new way. I've read the first 2 issues. I almost said first 2 issues, and it's great. Once you start getting into it, the second issue, it's like it really starts cooking. But you mentioned this already, Charles. You had other directions you could have went. You could have just been the genie guys. You could have just lived in Wishworld for a little while. I'm sure there are plenty of ideas you've thrown at each other and can throw at each other. How do you know something like the Lucky Devils is the right idea to go with versus going a different direction? Like, what made that the one for you two?
Can I answer to start with this, Ryan? Since a lot of it's
please
really
do.
different. So there's a bit of a story here, right? Which was that Ryan and I, we hang out in person as much as we can. Like Ryan lives in Chicago, I live in New York, but we get together in person as much as we can. And we had a mini little summit, a Silent E production summit in New York, for I don't remember why you were there, but where we started really talking about what we were going to do for a follow-up. And we came up with a lot of ideas. Ideas that are appealing to us are generally situations where Ryan can draw anything. That his incredible like sort of humor engine can come online, and he can draw things that are funny and strange and wild and surreal on the panel in a universe where they work, right? They aren't outlandish, or they're outlandish in a way that's supported by the universe and the story we're telling. But I also thought from my side of things that it would be really important to be able to tell a story that was relatable to deep human questions in the way that Genies was. Like I thought, and I think Ryan and I both spent a lot of time thinking about what worked about Genies. And one of the things was everybody could relate to it. Everybody could understand it. And so we kicked around a lot of different ideas, many of which were just sort of silly ideas that have been accumulated into a folio, which we now call the Browne and Soule Goofs, which we will at some point do. But these are books like Too Many Frankensteins and what's the plumber one?
Jake Lumber Bummer Plumber or something.
Yeah, he's
something
a very
like that.
depressed plumber.
It's like a weird phonic thing.
Yeah.
The Ghost and the GoBot, which I love. I want to do that book before I die, no matter what. But none of them were really it. They were just things that we were like, they're all comics that I would love even if they're just one pagers, I'd love to do them someday. But it took a long time. And I was settling on 2 ideas that I really thought were strong. And I presented them, and Ryan and I both chose one direction, and not the band. We chose a direction.
An
And so
adaptation about Harry Styles.
Yes, exactly. That was going to be that was going to be it. That was going to be it. So I spent, I don't know, like 6 months working on, or 3 months or 4 months. Let's say it was 4 months working on idea A. And I had a script ready to write. I had like all this development work done. Ryan was working on designs. It was like a movie set production studio had been put into place. We were ready to go. And I called him and I said, dude, this is wrong. It should be the other idea. And he's like, if you think so, man, I think you might be right. Let's do it. And so then I had to restart development on the second idea, which was the Lucky Devils. And so I have this completely fully fleshed out, similar, I think it was 7 issues or something like that, like another thing that maybe we'll go back to, maybe we won't. I don't know. It's still a really good idea, but it didn't feel the way Lucky Devils felt. And the thing that was always the key to Lucky Devils for me was a tiny little squiggly cartoon that I have in one of my notebooks when Ryan just sort of drew it, which was one of the devils on a person, like coiled around them and like perched on them, like a little like horrible parrot, basically. And that became the key idea for the book, that the devils don't just like, they're not like over there. They're like on you. They're on your head. They're hanging off you. They're like poking their tail in your ear, your nose, like they're on you physically, like bugs. And I thought Ryan could do amazing things with that, like the creatures crawling and moving and like always around you, in much the same way that like evil and temptation are kind of always around you. It was a very clear and obvious way to sort of physicalize on the page the metaphor of the book. And I think that's true. I think just like the genie designs were the key to that book really working the way it did, I think the devils are a massive part. Like I do all the structure I want. People don't like the pictures, they're not going to give a shit. So Ryan's designs for this book, I think, are better than what he would have done for the other book. Not that you would have done great, you would have, but like they wouldn't have felt like this. Do you agree with that, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, I remember the day where you were like, don't be mad at me, but I'm thinking we should do something else. I was just like, yeah, that sounds great. I don't really want to draw that anyways. So like, I wasn't really feeling it because it was playing in an arena that was very saturated, like a concept that there's a lot like it. And so the question is always, how do you find your own approach to it? Like when we did 8 Billion Genies and Curse Words, it was like, how do we tell a fantasy story that feels unique? And then how do we tell a story about a genie that doesn't just feel like Aladdin and monkey's paw stuff and whatever. And so like when we were gonna do something new, like it was very, very daunting to be like, oh, what are we gonna do next? How am I gonna come up with something that feels new and fresh? And so Charles had this idea about your local devil that basically controlled the asshole in your in your environment wherever you live, like the one asshole, like that there's a little devil in charge of him. And so it was interesting to me, but I couldn't really see it. And then we started drawing comparisons to 8 Billion Genies, and like the fact that they were using some of the formula of these little dudes that are messing with humans to tell stories about humanity. And so like this is like Lucky Devils ends up being like the evil twin of 8 Billion Genies. Like it explores a whole different part of humanity, but with these little creatures that have to operate very differently than the genies did. So like that's a fun acting thing for me when I'm like, genie's really fun, like to figure out them acting all the time, and now figuring out the devil's acting all the time. It's got they've got like a different like armature, like a different, you know, physicality to them. And that's part of the process of why issue one takes so long, is figuring out how they feel over and over again. And that, you know, they are like bugs, and then doing some design and then being like, oh, that looks too much like Hellboy, or that looks too much like, you know, some imp from something, or, you know, like, um, you know, how can I filter that a different direction, and like kind of carve out like my own space. And we were very fortunate to do that with Genies, with our take on a genie. I'm hoping people feel that way with the Lucky Devils. I think it's hitting a pretty good spot, that it feels unique.
Definitely the first time I've seen a demon with a circle jerk shirt on.
Yeah. I mean, that's the shirt they would wear, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, I like how everyone else is like walking around in suits and stuff, and Collar's got his circle jerk shirt on, and he's got his like flame mohawk and everything. It's a nice touch. I also feel like it kind of works on multiple levels, but circle jerks perhaps. Anyways, it's really great. But that actually does bring up something. This is probably a spoiler for the entire series, so it feels like a terrible question to ask. I'm going to ask it anyways because I'm horrible at this. Would you say Collar and Rake, the two demons, are the main characters over Star and Cam, the two humans? Because that's one of the things that kind of surprised me, is how centered the demons are over the humans. What's your take, Charles?
That is an interesting question.
Yeah.
I think it's really kind of a wait and see. There's a, you know, so what we're saying is it a two-hander or is it a four-hander, right? To use like screenwriting terminology, are there 4 leads or 2 leads? I think the demons are really fun to write. The humans are building out, like, as you know, as you'll see with issue 3, like they have really interesting things going on in their lives, and those will increase and magnify as the story continues. The story wouldn't be the story it is if the humans didn't become increasingly elevated in human society and then have to face all the temptations and terrible things that go along with it. This is not a spoiler per se, but the story takes place over a period of 9 years, and in that 9-year period, the 2 human characters go from being like kind of like nobodies in their 20s in Chicago to people in their 30s who are like kind of on top of the world in various different ways. And that's because of the influence and the connection they have to the demons and what the demons are trying to do. But the demons are really the main drivers of the story in terms of what happens, because they make the decision to start influencing and changing their humans' lives in order to create this revolution down in hell. Because the demons, the devils, Collar and Rake, are essentially like, you know, like those poor Amazon drivers who have to pee in bottles because they're warehouse workers because they're not allowed to go to the bathroom. You know, like they're gig workers, and they have to constantly be tempting. And if they're not tempting, they're like, you know, they'll never get ahead, and their lives are just going to be shitty. But their lives are always going to be shitty because it's hell, and there's never really a way to get ahead. And they've realized this, and they've decided that they're basically chosen ones who are going to burn the whole system of hell to the ground. And the way they're going to do that is by elevating 2 good people high up in human society. And because devils are not supposed to make saints, they're supposed to make sinners. And by making saints, they believe that they will then like inspire all the other devils to like tell the authorities to fuck off and do their own thing too. And it's really like a social kind of like a class revolution story a little bit. But it's set in hell, and it's set with these evil, like truly evil little bastards who lie to themselves, lie to each other, lie to everybody. So it just, I don't know. It takes a lot of things that people are going to be familiar with. It's just like all the other stuff we do, right? Where you think the story is X, and then it starts morphing, and by the time you get to around issue 6 or 7, you're like, this is nothing like what I thought it was going to be, in a way that hopefully will be really refreshing and awesome. So I guess the answer to your question is, I think when all's said and done, you're going to know a lot about the humans, but it's really going to be the devil's story, probably.
Yeah. To me, especially in the early going, like the plot is driven by the devils, right? Like they are making the active decisions that change the lives of these 2 people. So especially early going, the 2 people are just kind of like, I don't know what's going on, and they're kind of floating around. And so you'll see in issue 2 you get a little bit of it, but issue 3 is where you really start to see a little bit of the lives of the humans, and they will become rounder characters as it goes on. Whereas the early first 2 issues really focus on our devils, Colin Rake, and what they're doing and what their plan is and how they're putting it all in motion. So I don't know. I like drawing all of it. I really love the invention down in hell, but then I'm always like want to balance that with Chicago and like try and make that feel very Chicago and real.
Is that why you corrupted poor Patrick and Dal from Challengers?
Oh yeah, there are nonstop Chicago references in it. There's a scene that takes place on Logan Arcade in issue 2, which is my favorite arcade a friend of mine owns. And I know you did. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
He's thrilled about it too. So, but then Charles had written this scene about a devil that was breaking the rules by manipulating 2 different people against each other, and you're not supposed to manipulate a devil you're not assigned to. And so I'm like, all right, I'll just make them Patrick and Dal at Challengers because I want to draw.
I know 2 people
funding to draw, So, so those are the 2 people I know that get influenced in that like 2-panel moment.
I mean, we pop up in issue 2. There's a panel with us in it. Like, I mean, there's a long history of that. I mean, we showed up on the plane in curse words. Forget where we are in Genies. We're somewhere. But.
Yeah, we're all. I mean, there's little stories all over it. Like I did this short Godzilla versus Chicago story right before this, and one of the things that the editor said is like you can't use the Chicago bean. It's like heavily copyright protected. And meanwhile, I had a script for Lucky Devils that prominently featured the bean as like an establishing shot.
Yeah.
Is I was like, all right, well, I'm going to draw it upside down. So I drew the bean upside down. I don't know. Does that get us out of hot water? Probably. I don't know. But they're like, there's
I wish we knew a lawyer. Wish we knew a good lawyer.
There's moments. I mean, it's not the bean. What are you talking? It doesn't call it the bean. It's upside down. The bean is the other way up.
I have to say, your Chicago representation had me going down some rabbit holes. I had a surprisingly not surprisingly interesting. My wife's always interesting, but she's an architect, and I end up having a conversation with her about Ludwig Mies van der Rohe because.
Oh, that fucker.
Yeah.
Oh,
that fucker. You got beef with.
So this if you were to read the scripts, this would be made much more explicit. All the stuff about Mies van der Rohe is on purpose. I think he is anti-human. I think his architecture is despicable. I cannot stand it. I'm not joking around right now. I think it's the worst.
Sure.
And so I thought I have this platform, and I have an opportunity to represent something that is literally as close to hell on earth as I can think of. And so why not have it be a community college centered around the design and aesthetic principles of number one asshole Mies van der Rohe.
Do you have beef with Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio?
No, she's great. That's why she gets a beautiful hospital named after.
Okay, I wanted to be clear because I was like, I looked at both of those. I was like, there's no way that there's a hospital named after Mary Elizabeth. It's the only Mastrantonio I know. Nope, there wasn't.
Yeah.
Anyways,
well, if you look back at Genies, there's an Arctic Research Center that is named the Wally Kilmer Research Center, which is named after famously Val Kilmer's ex-wife.
Oh, there we go. I mean, I
had no idea what he was talking about either. What?
You were just too busy drawing the Bang Big Theory on TV in Hell City.
I mean, that's hell, right? Sitting around watching that show, man.
Yep.
I like the idea that it becomes the Bang Big Theory instead of the Big Bang Theory. It's a nice little reversal.
You gotta protect yourself. We can't get sued.
Hell City After Dark. I just assumed it was a weird porno version that they're all just sitting around watching in hell. Maybe it isn't. I don't know.
Probably. Who knows? Anyway, yeah, but the Mies van der Rohe stuff, how did that land for you?
It was great. I mean, it was funny because it actually made me learn a little about it. I will say my wife does like his chairs. Please don't yell at his chairs. Apparently he had some really nice chairs. I
don't mind his stuff either. And it's actually it's nicely easy to draw because you basically are just drawing perspective grids.
Yeah. Because there's nothing in it. It's just a box.
Yeah, but it's easier for me.
You appreciate it as an artist.
No, as a like a I could draw. How about this, Ryan? You know my art skill level. I could draw a Mies van der Rohe building, no problem. What is that?
But look,
What does that tell you?
it's easier than having it take place in like a Gothic church. Like that
That's
was
Yeah.
true.
awful.
Yeah,
you know, like
it's not going to take place in Sagrada Familia in Barcelona, and it's going to take you like 5 hours to draw that thing.
yeah.
Actually,
I
maybe
want
probably way
every
more
scene
than
to
that.
take place in that prison from THX 1138.
Just wait.
There isn't even like a horizon line. It's just white.
Well, I will say, Ryan, please reserve 4 pages in the hardcover design, like the book layout for my manifesto on that guy.
I can't wait. This is very exciting. I'm going to buy it for my wife, and she's gonna be like, I'm not going to read that. Whatever, you get it anyways. I mean, it seems like, you were talking about how early on, Collar and Rake are super important, or maybe the most important because, they're the cause, and like the humans are kind of the effect. It seems like you kind of have to focus on them at the beginning so you can establish the ground rules of hell and why they're doing this and the way things work, because they want to fix this inequity. But I do I love the idea that basically they pitch the humans. This comic has already been out for 5 days, so I'm going to go light spoiler territory on the idea of becoming powerful without becoming evil, which is a very difficult line to walk. That's why I feel like, in a weird way, there's a page in it that's a splash page where it's Collar and Rake head to head, and it has them talking about, on the previous page, Rake was talking about how there's like the worst people in the world, and then it says, I bet you can think of a few right now. And it is interesting, that page in particular, it did make me wonder, like, do you feel like The Lucky Devils is very colored by this moment in time versus where 8 Billion Genies came out, which was like dark, but maybe not like Gulf of America dark? Do you feel like it was colored by where we're at right now more than,
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we're nodding. I realize this might be an audio thing, but Ryan and I are both like nodding our heads.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I think that the question of why do people do such evil shit is a real question mark. Like people don't have to do the things they're doing. Like you look at them and it's like, why are you being like, you don't have to be a prick. Like what's going on? The first issue begins with the question, one of the main characters, Cam, asking, why is it so difficult to imagine a totally good, fully grown adult, like a person who does no harm, who can't even like think of doing harm, who like lives in the world and does no harm to anybody. It's like impossible. It's like a fantasy. You have to put your head through all of these hoops to try to, well, maybe if they were a monk in a monastery and never interact with anybody, like it's really, really hard. But try to imagine a person who's incredibly evil. You like that. It's no question at all. And so why does the world push us that way? Why is that the way that we go? Because babies aren't evil, right? Something happens to us.
Right.
And and so that's the question. That's really the question of the whole book, is the question the book opens with, just like Genies open with, hey, do you want to make a wish? And Curse Words is like, what was the opening line of Curse Words? It was like, hey, can I do a magic trick? Do you want to see a magic trick? Like, it's all like, you're going to see these consistencies within what we do. The whole book is right there on page 1, really.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Genies really responded with people. It was a book about basically the world falling apart and it being dangerous to go outside, that we were doing during a pandemic, and
Right.
And wish fulfillment, and like what it was a time where everybody was thinking about how they want everything to be different, and that was an accident in terms of lining up starting it. But then as
You didn't plan around the pandemic?
like, but it wasn't intentionally. We're like, we want to make a book that like speaks to people during this pandemic. But then once we started fleshing it out and you talk to people about it, again, it's a thing that people are reading it before you're done making it. And so then it's like, oh, I actually like see that this like resonates with people because of the way that the world is right now. And I think the same thing happened with the Lucky Devils. I don't think that we intentionally were like even like evil and corruption is is so apparent now constantly. And so it's a thing that we're always confronted with unless we just, want to watch sports and not think about it. It's a really strange time. Um, where it's just like you can basically look at anything that happens politically or corporate
Socially,
wise.
economically, you name it.
Yeah, you could just look at anything and be like, all right, why did that happen? It was either evil or stupid.
Greed or right.
Yeah,
It
it was
was
either
greedy or
either you're
whatever.
too stupid to know better, or you knew exactly what you're doing. You know the motivation. You see how what this decision made, how it equates to money and gain for other people or themselves, and like there's like it's easy. Like the equation is always easy, and it's why it makes everything so depressing and frustrating. Um, and so like it's fun to get at the to go more towards the anarchy side, the more towards the revolutionary side, and like the power of these two little devils and what they can do to upend just like a giant corporate machine that is hell, which is where we live now too.
Yes. It's interesting because like in a weird way, I mean, I feel like deep down, like I think you mentioned it earlier, 8 Billion Genies worked in a lot of ways because it was relatable. But right off the bat, The Lucky Devils feels darker and more personal in some ways. And I don't know why that is. Like, there's a part of me that kind of feels like Lucky Devils feels more personal just because it has a smaller cast and there's like less people you have to kind of figure out in the process. I will say I'm still very proud. No way you remember this, but when you're on the podcast, I successfully called that. I didn't say he was well, I don't want to say what the word I was about to say, but the bartender in 8 Billion Genies. I was onto that guy early. I knew it.
Oh, really?
But
Oh,
but that's the thing about these books though is like even like we talked in the beginning about how you're only a few issues in, you're still figuring things out. Things could still change as you're getting through it and everything. But it seems like I mean, the thesis statement about the book is right there in the beginning of the book. And you already know what it is. And now it's just fulfilling your dark biddings as these devil wranglers.
Yeah, it's a really like it's kind of awesome. I mean, the comment that we started all this with that whole like, we've created the first 10 minutes of a 90-minute movie and now we have to make the rest is intimidating, but it's also really thrilling because you kind of get to do it in real time and we get to go like you like what it feels like right now is we have all of this like it does feel like we have like magic powers because we're controlling this world and we can do all these crazy things with it. And we can twist the knife. We can make good things happen. We can make bad things happen. We can make shocking, surprising things happen. And I think it's for me, the surprises that happen along the way. What usually happens is stuff I thought was going to happen in issue 7 or 8. I'm like, what are we waiting for? Let's do that in issue 3. And then you're like, oh man, I don't know what's going to happen now. This is crazy. And that's already started to happen in issue 3. Like the stuff that happens at the end of issue 3 is not what Ryan and I originally talked about, really. And I mean, kind of, but like the way it goes is already starting to like, get out of control in a way that's really exciting that because I know myself well enough. I know my writing muse or whatever you want to call it well enough to know that it's not going to let me down. And so if I feel like this was the right thing to do at the end of issue 3, all it's going to do is open doors for things I can do in issues 4 through 9. And so, like, I'm really excited to keep writing this book. Ryan and I have this thing where I don't write very far ahead because I really like to see what he does. Because a lot of times there'll be characters or ideas or concepts he'll create that I'll then incorporate into further issues as we go. And so I don't really want to, like, I could write issue 4 right now, but I want to wait and see how he draws certain things before I go ahead and do it. So, which means we're always kind of on this tightrope walk as far as getting the issues out, but I don't know. It's part of the game.
Yeah, and it allows for like a lot of play, a lot of back and forth, right? Because Charles will come up with a great script, and then I will add on to it and put little bits in it, and what I'm feeling, and it's the type of thing where it's like if I was feeling good that day, maybe I wanted to spend more time inventing and like coming up with an idea that like would strike me that if I was drawing on another day, I wouldn't have that idea. But then when I give it back to Charles, then he adjusts dialogue and changes things to fit what I've drawn. And then, you know, when you see it with the colors and the way it all reads, and he does another lettering pass to like tighten it up and make it real crisp and stuff. And so it's a really organic thing. It's not like Charles wrote a finished story that I'm adapting into a comic. Like, we're making a comic together. And so it's assembly line in some aspects, but not really like he's built this part of the car, and then I built this part of the car, and the car goes out.
It's
The
a conversation.
car comes back, and we,
Yeah,
you know,
it's a
Yeah.
jazz performance that lasts for 2 years.
I hope this means that we're going to get a look inside of Hell City's mass transit, because the final splash page of the first issue, it does not seem like a great way to travel inside of living beings that are like satanic versions of cat buses from My Neighbor Totoro.
Yeah.
But
That's a prescient thing to say. It's not great.
no, I don't imagine it would be great.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do love that both 8 Billion Genies and the Lucky Devils, their first issues, do end with splash pages that are a look of the world. Because I mentioned this, I mean, Charles, we talked about this the other day. It feels very deliberate.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, if you look at this, if you look at the start of issue 2, it becomes extremely deliberate that we're playing with similar things. I mean, I think that we'll do different things with it, but like it's a sort of a tongue-in-cheek nod. Like we know that 8 Billion Genies was about 8 billion genies, and this book is not called 9 Billion Devils, but like there's things that we want to, what's that George Lucas thing? It's like poetry, it rhymes, like there's things that we think are fun, and we've been echoing ourselves. I don't know what I think eventually, Ryan, like the last comic we do is just there's not gonna be a story. It's just gonna be panel after panel that are just references to other things we've done, catchphrases and cameos, and just there's nothing. It's just this big crowd shot of all this stuff, and that's the comic we put out.
That's where the Ghost and the GoBot.
Yeah, well, that's wow, what a book! What a book! The Ghost and the GoBot.
I can't wait.
Do you want to know the premise of the Ghost and the GoBot? This is an exclusive, except I've said it on every podcast because I love talking. The premise of the Ghost and the GoBot is you have a GoBot who's like a sports car, and he makes friends with a local teenager who's just learned to drive, because that's what GoBots and Transformers do.
Oh no, I already see where this is going.
Their local person, and they're driving along, and then like a cat runs across the road in front of the sports car, and the GoBot gets spooked and transforms into a robot, smushing the kid, and the kid dies instantly. Did not suffer, instantly dies, but becomes a ghost. And now the Ghost and the GoBot are inextricably linked. In fact, his skeleton is still in there. So like when he transforms into a car, his skeleton is still there. So they drive around the adventures, the Ghost and the GoBot. That's that one. So I don't know when we'll do it, but man, oh man, what could you imagine? What a book.
We gotta get the GoBot rights from Hasbro.
5-year-old
that's it. Maybe we call it the GooBot. Can we call it a GooBot?
5-year-old David Harper was obsessed with GoBots, so I'm pretty sure 5-year-old David Harper, if you asked him, that would probably be the way he'd want to go out. And you're like, yeah, I'd die that way. That sounds great. Crushed to death as a kind of knockoff. Yeah, exactly. Wow. Crush me, Jazz from the Transformers. I want to die so you can transform. Okay, just a couple more questions. I do love, one of my favorite parts about the book is like the low-level devils only have the power to tempt with one sin. And like, it did make me wonder like what my own sin would be. I like landed on gluttony. Do you guys, what would your sin be?
In terms of the thing we would use, or the thing that would
be used against you
easily? That's a great one. Oh man, this is a very like, it exposes things, and depending on the answer you give, it's illuminating.
What are all the sins again?
Wrath, greed, envy, lust, sloth, gluttony, pride, and there's another one.
We don't remember it because it's not important. Gluttony is obviously my pick, because every time I watch sports and they have ads for like Taco Bell nuggets, it makes me want to eat Taco Bell nuggets. Actually, if there's an advertisement for any type of food, I would just want to eat it because I love food. But yeah, I think that's it. What do you got, Ryan?
I was trying to decide what the sin would be for feeling bad about everything.
Actually, canonically speaking, in the second issue, one comic book artist is tempted by 3 different ones simultaneously. So you could just
Well,
choose from one of those three.
Yeah, it's true.
That's because the character, as the devils go up in the hierarchy, as they get promoted, they get access to more sins, so they can use more than one at a time as they go higher up. So the devils at the top of the hierarchy can use all of them, and that's why the devils that those people run are so like rotted inside in their souls, because they've been affected by all 7 deadly sins at the same time. It's a cool, like, it all kind of makes sense within the world of the thing.
Yeah.
Have you picked your sin yet, Ryan? Because I know the one I would say, and it's not going to surprise you at all.
Go,
Yeah,
Charles.
I don't think I have one.
You're immune to sin.
Whoa.
Well, I just my sin is I don't know. I just got to get outside of my own head. I don't know. Like I'm not particularly angry and gluttonous, or I don't know.
Not overly prideful.
Yeah, no, I should
You're not Ryan. You are the most lustful person I've ever met.
I should,
All you do is lust, buddy.
I need to figure out a way to like enjoy my life and not feel bad about things so much.
Mhm.
But
I don't think they
that's
got
not
a sin for that quite yet. Charles,
Yeah,
what is your sin?
That should be though.
Mine
That is
would-
sinful.
I mean, in a way, yeah. Mine would be pride, which I don't think is a Ryan. You're nodding your head. Yeah, I mean, it'd be pride.
Mhm.
That's the
Yeah.
thing that can ding me sometimes, because it, I don't know. It's something I work on. Like thinking that I'm fortunate. I don't deserve the stuff that's happened. I'm really lucky to have the things that have happened in my life, and that's something I work on a lot. And so I think if a devil was gonna ding me and make me do terrible things, pride would probably be their way in.
That's better than Taco Bell nuggets.
Yeah.
I did like your ad in Zdarsky Comic News. I just wanted to say really quick before we move on, because you have, I think there was 2 straight ads, one with you and Chip as lawyers, and then the next one was you and Chip as lawyers, but now it's totally tainted by demons. So I like that you feature in your own ads, but that works great.
Yeah. Chip is a friend of the depressed pervert Chip Zdarsky is a friend of both of ours. And I think that honestly, man, if we're talking about ZCN, what a great idea. Like,
Amazing.
you've seen this, Ryan. Like, you've seen what he's doing.
Well, yeah, I'm so jealous of it. I told
What a
him
great-
recently that I would like him to give me it so I can do it.
Yeah. I mean,
but like for doing
Yeah.
that ad was super fun because
Yeah.
I got to draw over Chip's drawing. Like
Yeah.
he
Oh, you did that?
Yeah, I did that. Like he
Nice.
made the fake lawyer ad to 2 lawyers that write about Daredevil or whatever it was, with he and Charles, and then for the next month I drew the devils having defaced it, and we're like on, like, I think like one of the devil's tails is going into Chip's mouth and poking in Charles's eye or something. But yeah, he asked me to do that. It was really kind of him.
Yeah, he's great, and I think he's a sharp cat, to put it mildly. Like, he's got great ideas, and they come from a place of loving comics and wanting to do cool things and like being fun, which is great. And I think it's been very successful, and I think it's something we kind of needed, and I think it's going to get even bigger in the next year, which is great.
I wanted to advertise in it, so I'm terribly envious. This is the second straight time I've had a podcast where I talked about my envy of people who are in that. But actually, I do want to say really quick, you guys are very good at promotions. I actually sent an agent over to get a coaster from you guys at New York Comic Con. I also have the preview edition over there, but I was literally just putting my water on the coaster, which remind me I should mention my Lampwick coaster, which you can't actually see. But last question for you. You've done a lot to position yourself as a creative team people can trust will deliver quality work consistently. And I think it really speaks to how thoughtful you are about this, that you didn't want to just be the Wishworld guys. You just don't want to just keep doing 8 billion different genies and stuff like that. But how do you keep building on that? Like, do you feel like you two need to keep building and pushing yourselves to keep that audience that trusts in you excited? Or is it just about finding a good project and doing your best work?
I think we would give different answers to this, Ryan. I mean, what do you think?
No, you go first. I want to see you. You go.
I believe it is the first. I think it is something, but for me, it's not I think it's really fun. Like, this is I before I was a writer, I I was an attorney, but before I was that, I was a musician. And so, and I was in like a ton of bands in college. And so I come out of this zone where like it's crucial that you build a fan base. It's crucial that you get people to come out to your shows. It's crucial that you sell them your, $8 homemade CD that you made at home on your CDR. Like you have to make those things happen for yourself. For me, part of the fun of having an audience in comics is that I get to do fun, weird things to promote the work and have people show up for it. So like at the, Ryan and I've been doing this stuff for the longest time. We did the Curse Word Wizard van tour back in 2017. We rented a van, painted it up with wizards, and drove all around the country promoting our comic book. And I think comics should be fun in the way that ZCN is fun, the way that, I'm surprised that there aren't more gimmicky things that people do. Like Bad Idea does a lot of fun things that are just kind of out there, but like they're just, the idea of what they're doing is fun. And so to me, having an audience that will go with us and let us promote things in interesting ways is like it's a great part of the process for me. It's really, really fun. I also think that it's very hard to get eyeballs. If you can get people super invested in you as a brand, as a thing that you can trust, they'll tell other people about it. It's almost the easiest way to build hyper loyalty is to do things that are directly connected to the individuals who've been supporting you. So I think it's really, really important. We are doing more with that stuff this year. We just opened like a Discord. We both have our newsletters. We have a very robust web store operation that we're going to build out more in 2025. We're going to be touring a lot. We're going to be getting out in front of people. We're going to probably, assuming we can pull it off, do like a big party at C2E2 where we it's about Silent E and the stories, and we'll have other creators there. If I can do it, I'll bring my band out and we'll do the whole Curse Words concept album live. Like it's stuff like that is like, oh, I know those guys in a way that maybe you don't know. I'm not going to name names, but like people who don't throw parties where their
Right.
concept album gets played live, it's memorable, and memory and associations and emotions and feelings turn into audience. And audience means we get to do this for the rest of our lives. And that's all I ever want to do is this for the rest of my life. So my answer is it is crucially important to do all that stuff. Ryan, I think, is going to be more in the other direction, but I could be wrong.
Wait, hold on. So what's the question again?
The
Do
question
you
was,
think you should do all the crazy promotional stuff and build the brand constantly, like hyper focus on it? Or do you just want to like do awesome books and hope that people read them?
I like the stunt, I do. Like I've had a lot of fun. I mean, if you look at God Hates Astronauts and Blast Furnace, like those were things that there isn't issues 1 through 50 of God Hates Astronauts. There's, specials and, guest stories and, rescripted issues. And like, that's why when I put out that omnibus, I was like, I'm just going to put this out because nobody knows what order to read any of this stuff. Because I would just be like, all right, here's a comic show. And it would be fun to do something stupid that you could only get from me. Like I remember the first comic show, when I did God Hates Astronauts for a while, self-published, and then Image picked it up and put out a trade, and then I did a whole new series. And I was like, I went to comic shows, and I was like, I'm going to bring all these trades of the new Image series, and I would go to comic shows and not make any money because everybody already had everything. Like they all bought it at the stores, and I was used to people buying it only from me. And so that's when I was like, all right, I gotta like play both angles. I have to have things in stores because there are a lot of people that only buy things in stores. I'm gonna do things on Kickstarter because there's tons of people that only buy their comics on Kickstarter, and then I gotta do things that are just for me at shows, because there are fans that only buy things at shows. And so then it still happens all the time where people are like, I love God Hates Astronauts. I'm like, did you read the Image series? And they're like, I didn't know that existed. It's like, well, okay, I tried. I don't know. So like that is so the long running series that just goes on and on and on used to be my dream, but it's really not anymore because I get bored, and I love the invention. And so when Charles and I are like, well, New York Comic Con's an expensive show to do, and we haven't had a new book out in a while. Let's see if in the next 2 months we can write and draw and self-publish 8 Billion Genies Wishworld as a fun surprise for people to be like, hey, come to our table because we have a new issue of 8 Billion Genies. You can only give them us. Like versus the Lucky Devils, which is a year of crafting,
Right.
and getting Image involved and moving parts involved and like waiting forever, versus like Wishworld was literally came from the printers to Charles in New York, and then he brought directly to the comic show, and it was just like a high wire act of like, we just made this and it's here right now. And so that stuff, I think as a super nerd, you know, culty fan of creators and, you know, comic creators and movie creators and stuff like that, I follow a musician's like entire everything. You know, that's what I want to be. Like I want to keep doing fun things. I don't just want to be a faceless, nameless, you know, illustrator that, you know, nobody knows about, you know.
Well, I am looking forward to the rest of your current fun thing with the Lucky Devils, but that is all I have for you. Thank you so much for coming on to talk about the Lucky Devils, 8 Billion Genies, and everything else. I really appreciate you two taking the time.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.